We had certain objectives at the opening of free agency that we hope to accomplish and address. I think we talked at the end of the season, or maybe it was at the draft, with our own free agents, that we had a lot of interest in trying to bring them all back for different reasons, and we weren't going to be able to do that with all of them. And we adjusted or pivoted and were able to bring in some players to replace some of the guys we couldn't bring back, and address some of areas of maybe weakness or concern with the players that we brought in.
Is that where Tarasenko, to make up especially some of the offense?
For sure, yeah. Like a left shot winger, bigger body, a little bit different type of player than our wingers, Lucas, Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat. You get a bigger body, a left shot will fill out that I'll say top 6, top 9 group, scorer, straight ahead guy who's big and strong and go to the net. I think that's we feel it's a really good addition.
Steve, what's going on with the goaltending right now? How are you? Are you planning on going with 3, or what exactly is the situation there?
Well, we'll go into training camp. We brought in 3 goaltenders last year. Our goal wasn't to go with 3 throughout the season, and we debated initially on placing one of the goalies on waivers, and ultimately waited, and then with injuries we were glad we didn't. We'll see how Vili's health is in training camp. We expect him to be 100% ready to go, and then we'll kind of do what we did last year. We'll play it by ear. We'll figure it out as we go along.
Steve, you're adding Tarasenko with Berger and some more offense there, but there's still kind of a deficit with all the guys that you lost that had scored last year. You just planning to make that up? Is it going to have to be internally, or is there another move possible?
I would say there's another move possible. We'd consider that. I don't have anything on the go at the moment. We kind of tally up the goals in, the goals out. Obviously, we're counting on Vlad Tarasenko to add to that. We just look internally. We expect a little more out of Lucas Raymond. Alex DeBrincat, his shooting percentage for his career was down a little bit last year, and if you recall, the great scoring chances that he had hit the bar and went out, and we think that'll contribute a little bit more. I think I know you're all big on analytics, and I think his expected goals will turn into goals next year. I think his numbers will go up. Jonathan Berggren we expect to contribute a little bit to that. So on the back end, Eric Gustafsson will contribute to some of the offense lost with Shane Gosses-Bear and Jake Wollman's goals, and then ultimately, hopefully, we can keep a few more out of the net, and that maybe it nets out in a positive way.
Do you feel, team defense-wise, do you feel like you were able to do kind of what you want? I know that was a priority for you coming out of the season.
Yeah, we had to make some changes. One, we couldn't afford to keep all of that same decor together and just bring back and just ice a team. When the season ended, for different reasons, our last couple of games we had $6.8 million on defense sitting in the stands. We can't do that this year with our young players' contracts coming up, and so we had to make some changes. But I'm happy with the decor. We're expecting Simon to play a bigger role. Albert Johansson will get an opportunity to have an impact on the decor and fit in somehow, and we're confident that at some point he will play. We were really fortunate last year. We didn't have a lot of injuries on D. A couple guys didn't play much because of that, and we don't want anybody to get hurt, but the odds are we're going to face some injuries, and I think you need 8, 9 defensemen. You're not going to carry 9. Most teams carry 7, but plan on having 8, and having somebody called up, you have injuries. So we have depth on our blue line. And again, we're counting Simon to have a bigger impact on the team, and the rest of the core, Eric Gustafson will replace the Ghost as that kind of that offensive, probably on a power play guy. Expect him to be on one of the power play units. So, we're just kind of keep going along and be patient with our younger defensemen. Axe will be another year in Sweden. Wait for him. We got Tamistu and Wallander in the minors. Shai Buyum just signed, so it allows us to be patient and let the young kids continue to develop when they're ready to go.
When you talk about kind of keeping a few more goals out of the net, how big a part of that is Talbot?
Well, yeah, I think he'll be an important part. I don't know. I can't tell you how many game starts they're all going to get, but he had a very good year in Los Angeles this year, and prior just the 1 year, 2 years ago in Ottawa where he had some injuries, but you go and look back at his numbers are consistently really solid. Big guy and competitive guy who's had a relatively strong career, and I expect his save percentage to help and reduce the good number of goals against. But collectively as a team, our play has to pick up on that side, and some of the changes on the lineup will help, and coaches tweaking things a little bit in the way we do it, and if we can creep our goaltending overall save percentage up a little bit, that should contribute to a little bit more or less or fewer goals against. Excuse me.
Steve, as you mentioned before, it was tricky for you to set aside some money to make sure you could take care of your RFAs and also kind of do your business. Now that you've gotten here, it looks like you planned this almost down to the dollar a little bit. Are you satisfied that you have enough money for the RFAs? And did that change as kind of went on, your estimate of what you're going to need?
Hasn't changed our estimate on what we've set aside for. We have, correct me if I'm wrong, four restricted free agents today, and Mo, Lucas, Joe Valeno, and Jonathan Berggren. And we can estimate on a shorter term deal, and we can also estimate on a longer term deal. And so we've set aside a certain amount of money in the budget for them. And as free agency went along and we're trying to get our own guys signed, we had to tweak things a little bit. But what hasn't changed is what we think those four players are going to come in at, and we'll hopefully we will get contracts done with them. It's just a question of when, and then what term do we do actually on all of them.
How happy were you to get Kaner signed on a shorter term? I mean, too, that's another.
Yeah, I mean, there's good and bad for both parties. There's risk in every contract we do. What's the risk for the player on a long-term deal? They outperform their contract. The risk on the team on a long-term deal is the player doesn't perform up to his contract. On the shorter-term deal, you lose a little bit of control, but you have flexibility. So ultimately, what Patrick's contract does, he's over 35. We're able to do a contract that has some bonuses in it that allows us some flexibility with our with the salary cap to either use it this year or push it into next year, depending on how the season goes.
You've mentioned a few times that the idea isn't to build a team that can make the playoffs once, but rather make it consistently on an annual basis. How do you perceive the relationship between achieving that objective and eventually competing for a championship as well, not just making the playoffs?
Well, again, we're trying to build a core that's going to be together for a number of years, and unfortunately, it takes time, and depending on how your drafts go, where you draft, who's available in those drafts, it can expedite the process or it can be slower. And I'm going to continue to try to be patient with our draft choices, our prospects, until they're ready to go, and we'll keep building on that group. And as we've gotten a little bit better each season, we all would love to make the playoffs next year. We would have loved to have made the playoffs last year. But ultimately, we're still trying to put together that core of young guys that is going to be together and start to creep into the playoffs and hang around the playoffs and maybe eventually win. So again, that is the big picture, the long-term plan, and we'll stick with that, and we try to try to surround these young players with good people and better hockey players to help them become better players, and slowly inch forward. And this season we'll see how big of an impact we have, but we'll have three young players in Simon Albert and Jonathan Berggren move into the lineup. So again, we're continue to build that core, and that's my main focus, and we'll kind of continue to add each year, whether it be through free agency or whatnot.
Do you feel a little more pressure as the years go by? I mean, I know they'd already missed the playoffs for a few years when you got here, but you know what a rebuild can be like from a player perspective, like just if you feel a little bit more pressure as the years go by and the playoffs keep being elusive.
Yeah, a little bit, honestly. We want, our fan base wants to win. We came close last year to making the playoffs. Still, the finish of our season, it was very exciting and dramatic. It's a little bit maybe misleading. Like, we've got to really improve, as we talk about in some areas. We got to get deeper. And we'd love to make the playoffs again this year, and I'm hopeful, but going to continue to try and, as I say, try to build like a really strong nucleus of younger players that are going to be around here. Pressure, I guess, whatever you want to call it, it's not going to change what I'm trying to do. And it's the right way to do it, and it's taken some time, and I can't tell you it's 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and I'm just going to stick with it here, and we'll keep going. But we would all love to win, and me, you, everyone, our fan base, I understand.
When you look at the roster today, I mean, obviously it'll play out on the ice, but when you look at it today, how do you feel about the playoff chances?
I don't think it's any different than I felt last year. I think we're in with that group of teams that has a chance to compete for the playoffs if we stay healthy, if our goaltending is good, and you get some maybe unexpected, I don't want to say production, but some players outplay your expectation, we might get in. Or you might just miss by a point on the last game of the season. That's the fine line of it all. So I look at our group or our team today, the roster today, and compare it to last year's group. It's a little bit different. It might be a little bit better fit as far as roles for players where they play, or at least where they sit on the roster today. So I expect it to be like a comparable team the next year. A lot of things went well. Our power play was at times excellent. I think finished 9th in the league. We got some incredibly timely goals from players to win some of these games very dramatically. Maybe it won't be as dramatic next year, and maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe we'll win some games with lower scoring and not have these wild comebacks, and we also might not have some of these wild losses where we were leading too, So I think it's going to be different. Ultimately, I think we're kind of in a similar spot. For the most part, the core part that had a big impact last year will remain the same, and if anything, potentially be a little better. If Lucas Raymond continues on the same trajectory that he finished the season at, he's like a legit impact player. We'll have Patrick Kane for an entire season, and our lineup is shaped up a little different, and we're shaped a little bit differently, and hopefully we can build off the momentum, all of our guys that they created throughout the season.
Steve, were you in on any of the top free agents that went on Monday, or does it kind of the term in the Monday kind of not fit with what you're trying to do?
We had some interest in one that we thought might be a fit, and we didn't. These things got to happen really quickly, and we decided very quickly that it's going to be really some major surgery here to try and get it done, and we didn't want to waste everybody's time and really getting there. So there, one player we thought might have been a real good fit, but it was going to be a challenge to get it done. And the concern on that day, on July 1, is everybody's gone. if you kind of go down a certain road. So we had to adjust what we, decide which way we really wanted to go here, and chose the path we did.
How close were you on Shane, or how long, did you pursue Shane, or?
What I would say, I'm trying to think of we lost through free agency David and Shane. Both players, we talked with their agents throughout the process right up until the free agency period opened. Ultimately, we couldn't agree on contracts that worked for both sides, and we all went into the free agency window. So we talked right up until the end, and unfortunately we weren't able to get deals done that worked for both parties.
How would you assess navigating the free agent market this season with the salary cap going up? It's impossible to predict, but did you anticipate it, kind of the market playing out as it did in general?
Probably not to the extent, the big guys, the big fish, whatever you want to call them, we kind of expected them to. Nothing was really shocking there or unexpected there. What was a little bit more interesting was the term and the dollars. A lot of maybe role players got. I didn't really see that, and it wasn't really our model. There's a lot of players around the league that were free agents that we were like, they'd be a good fit for us. We'd really like to get them, and the dollars and not so much the dollars, but the term was attention grabbing.
Does that change how you look at RFAs at all? It's obviously different markets, but in the end, if you don't go along with RFAs, they can become UFAs and all that. Like, does what happened on the UFA market affect how you view going along with the restricted guys?
I take it on a individual basis, and you have reasons where you're comfortable or not comfortable, or of going on a long-term contract with a player. I really care not to elaborate on that, why, but and ultimately it comes down to like if we're comfortable with the player, what they're willing to do long-term might not match up with what we want to do long-term. So we do something short-term, and you see how it evolves or plays out a little bit.
Something I feel like fans really took note of was the handful of Michigan-born players that you acquired during free agency. I'm sure that's not something you necessarily go out and seek, but
No.
How cool does it have to be for some of these players to add to the already handful of Michigan guys we have on the team?
Yeah, honestly, it's not part of the plan, but we get into free agency, or even players indicate they'd be interested in coming back, and I've been here 5 years now, and over the course of those years, I've heard from agents and things that player would really love to come back, but on these terms, and sometimes those terms work for us, and sometimes they don't. So I think it's only natural you see the kids that in any whether they're Toronto or Montreal or Ottawa or Detroit, they grow up in the city of their the favorite team their favorite team is the team in the city they grew up in, and it's like, hey, I'd love to play at home. So I think there's a bit of an allure for the players, but ultimately they also want to fit, as far as fit, not just financially, but fit the role they're going to play. What stage of the team is, what stage you are in I guess what stage your team is at in the process, and then ultimately, does the contract make sense? So, but I think it's good. I think it's good for our market. I think it's good, shows the strength of hockey in the state of Michigan, in the Detroit area, that these young players are coming up and playing in the NHL, and I think there's a little bit of an added bonus for us that they're from the area, but most importantly, we're trying to put a good team on the ice, and we don't care where the players are from.
Steve, just one more question on defense. When you traded Jake, the way the defense looks now, is that what you had in mind, or is that in response to some external forces, or just is this how you wanted your defense to look?
A little bit of everything you said there. Ultimately, we needed to move out some money on our back end, and then what role is a player going to play? Where does everybody fit in, and then ultimately what are my options in moving players? Does this make us a better team? So ultimately we're looking at our left side. We've got a lot of left shot D. We've got Albert, who is on our, I think he's making the league minimum this year, which is valuable to have players on minimum contracts or close to the minimum. Simon's going in to play a bigger role, and then on our right side, and we wanted somebody that could play on the power play, and with losing Shane, it was important that we bring someone in that can have an impact on the power play, and so we were able to bring in Eric, who replaces that role at a lower dollar. So it's kind of like putting together a bit of a puzzle, and you have certain amounts of money and to do it, and if this piece takes up more money, then you spend less on that part. And so anyway, today I'm pleased with what our decor looks like. We'll talk at some point in the season, and hopefully we're still pleased with it.
Was part of the attraction of bringing Fisher back just how well that line with him and Rasmussen and Kopp worked?
Yes, he's a very popular player on our team. He's very versatile on the ice. As you saw, he played on that third line. That was a good, effective checking line when Ras was healthy. He's predominantly a winger, but we used him at center at times as well. He's a good penalty killer, so he's very versatile. And again, for that role, you look around the league at what some of the players with similar production in the role. It's a really good value to that contract, we think. But ultimately, like his character and his personality, and the role he's going to play on our team were the biggest factors in bringing him back.
Can Gustafsson play the right side?
We're going to find out. Yeah, he's played back and forth. He's a mobile guy. He's been on different teams. He's a veteran. Like he can play. Like Shane played the right side as well, and ultimately I'll let Derek decide on what he does. But I could certainly foresee him playing the right side. Simon can go over there too, and I don't know what the deep pairings are ultimately going to be. I have my own vision, but Derek will decide on that. Albert can play both sides as well. But yeah, these real mobile D that have puck skills can go on either side.
How much of a role did the health issues Husso had towards the second half of last year play in a decision to bring in a couple of experienced goalies?
Yeah, significantly, honestly. Like we gotta, you go into a season, say just with your two goaltenders and a guy you're projecting to play a lot isn't healthy. It's a huge hole to fill at the start of the season. So we decided we're going to go get another goaltender, and we'll let training camp go through. We'll see how Billy's health is, and then make a decision at some point.
You see, what's the latest? Is he training? Or?
Yeah, no, 100%. Everything's good, cleared to play. It's in his off-season program would be right on track to be ready to go, and as if he had not had any injuries throughout the season.
Is that the same with everybody? Because I think Dylan had that. You weren't sure if he was training the last time we talked.
Yeah. Well, he's training. I don't think he's. I wouldn't. These guys. I'm not even sure they may have skated a little bit, but usually right around early July they get back on the ice. But he'll be 100% for training camp. I kind of get a periodic updates from the medical staff, and everybody's progressing fine, and there's no concerns or any concerns that any of our guys are not going to be ready for training camp 100%.
How about just a thought on development camp? Do you wish you had nutritional information when you were 18 and first coming to camp?
Not sure I would have paid attention to it, but just things have evolved and changed so much. We meant from you say nutrition, just the skills instructors, the skating instructors, the performance science part of sports now. Things have changed dramatically, and the kids have so much more information and education to them, and we're hoping they kind of soak it in. And for the most part, I find all the young athletes today are really into the gadgets and all this science, and find it interesting, and some of the older players are buying into it as well, but it's all designed to make them better hockey players, better athletes, healthier, so the kids are really, really engaged in it, and I really think our staff, kind of overseen by Mike Barwis, as one of the phenomenal, intelligent, educated people, and really fun to work with, and the kids seem to be really enthralled by it and intrigued by it maybe, and some of them are more advanced than others depending on where they play, what level they're playing at, what organization they're in, but they're all, all really buying into it, and they should, because the best athletes in the world, the best teams in all of sports in the world are applying all the modern performance and science, technology and information to become better athletes.